Good day, everyone. My name is Karen Jemima Ailadera, and together with me is my partner, and we will discuss to you our re-entry plan on FDC, Misamis Power Corporation.
Introduction for the company. FDC Utilities Incorporation is a subsidiary of the Philinvest Development Corporation, committed to making a difference in the lives of Filipinos. As one of the Philippines' leading conglomerates with significant investments, experience, and expertise, the Philinvest Group through FDCUI attempts to diversify its business and further its reach to make an impact on the infrastructure and utilities sector. The firm successfully developed FDC Misamis 3 by 135 milliwatt circulating fluidized bed coal thermal plant located in Fividec Industrial Estate, Villanueva, Misamis Oriental. CFB is known for having higher steam generator efficiency, thus lowering carbon emissions. FDC Misamis was inaugurated by President Rodrigo R. Duterte last September 22, 2016, and is the first power plant commissioned under his administration. It is envisioned to end the recurring power crisis that has afflicted Mindanao for decades by providing reliable and affordable electricity all over the country while enhancing synergy among the subsidiary groups of the Philinvest.
Limitation. The Occupational Safety and Health program presented in this presentation talks about the different kinds of hazard categories that are visible in FDC Misamis Power Corporation. Also included are the specific categories of every hazardous material and machinery in the company. 2 months was a given time to finish this presentation. Researching and interviewing some of the employees in the said company was needed in order to compile enough knowledge for this presentation. Due to the limited resources and understanding of the company, online videos of FTC and PC helped on identifying the risks outside and inside the facilities. There were no face-to-face interaction that happened. Everything was purely made through online applications for safety of every individual in these times of pandemic.
Before we can identify the risks and hazards in the company, we must first define what risks and hazards are. So anything that may cause injury, loss, or adverse health effects to people in the workplace is considered a hazard. While a risk is the possibility of a person being hurt or suffering a negative health impact as a result of a threat.
Here are some of the types of machinery used in the company. Generator. It is a device that converts mechanical energy into electrical power used for the external circuit. Turbine. A rotary machine device that extracts energy from a fluid flow and converts it into useful work. The work produced by a turbine can be used for generating electrical power when combined with a generator. Motor is a machine, especially one powered by electricity or internal combustion, that supplies motive power for a vehicle or for some other device with moving parts. Pumps, a device that expends energy in order to raise, transport, or compress fluids by mechanical actions, typically converted from electrical energy into hydraulic energy. The machinery used in the company makes loud noises more than a normal person can acquire.
Noise hazards. The power plant uses machines such as generators, turbines, pumps, and big motors that cause loud noises within the company. A person can only take up to 90 decibels and above that can cause chronic hearing damage, especially if exposed to these loud noises every day. Since the average sound production of a generator is 75 decibels to 85 decibels, while in turbines it's 43 decibels, and not to mention the others can create more than 90 decibels. So for the risks and hazards of noise, we have here the object and the noise capacity of a person.
Hearing protection devices include earmuffs, foam insert earplugs, and semi-aural earplugs. In any area where noise levels exceed 100 decibels, Double hearing protection is required. Personnel should avoid being exposed to noise levels above 100 decibels. The employer is responsible for ensuring correct initial fitting of the hearing protection devices, such as the employee is responsible for ensuring that the hearing protection is worn correctly. Hearing protectors must be replaced if needed at no cost to the employee. And cleaning and storing hearing protection equipment must be done according to the manufacturer's instructions. The protective equipment or the ear protection device, earmuffs, has disadvantages and advantages. Advantages such as earplugs have less security at higher frequencies. There are more varieties of NRRs available. Long lasting and durable, may be worn on a hard hat, recyclable. The disadvantage is that it's high cost. The eyeglasses can obstruct the earmuff seal. In hot conditions, it can be really unpleasant, and it must be washed until another worker may use it again. Another hearing protection device is the foam inserted earplugs, which has advantages and disadvantages as well. The advantages are muffs are less protection at lower frequency, have less protection at lower frequencies, and there are a variety of NRRs available. It is disposable, low cost, and can be molded to suit the needs of each worker. The disadvantages are that before putting in the earplugs, make sure that your hands are washed. You don't want to get any dirt inside. And the incorrect insertion lowers the NRR rating, so there should be a proper way in putting. Lastly, we have the semi-oral earplugs. The advantages are there are a variety of NRRs available. The insertion is easy. It is possible to use it several times and is ideal for those who like to enter and exit noisy environments. The disadvantages are that the incorrect injection decreases the potency of the product. Earplugs are more costly, and NRRs are usually smaller than connectors or muffs. The company should also conduct audiometric testings. An audiometry test will determine how well hearing capacities are. It tests both the force and the tone of sounds, balance issues, and different issues identified with the capacity of the internal ear. A specialist who has some expertise in diagnosing and treating hearing misfortunes called an audiologist oversees the test. Why is audiometry performed? An audiometry test is performed to decide how well you can hear. This might be done as a component of a standard screening because of an observed loss of hearing.
Fire hazards. The company is a 3 by 135 milliwatt circulating fluidized bed coal thermal plant which has a combined capacity of 405 milliwatt and uses the latest clean coal technology. The company uses coal to produce fire to provide electricity to the area. With the use of the triangle of fire, the analysts were able to identify some fire hazards since fuel, heat, and oxygen being mixed up together can create fire. There is a high risk for the employees. Fire hazards. The company is a 3 by 135 milliwatt circulating fluidized bed coal thermal plant which has a combined capacity of 405 milliwatt and uses the latest clean coal technology. The company uses coal. Risks and hazards of fire hazards in the company. If flammable objects are present, hot work can be a cause of fire, or it can be a fire hazard regardless of the existence of flammable material in the workplace. Welding, soldering, drilling, brazing, and the use of power actuated equipment or related fire producing activities outside of a specific hot work areas are also typical hot work procedures.
Fire protection system. Welding and other hot work has been found to be a high ranking cause of industrial fires. Fire protection systems are considered either active or passive. Active fire suppression systems require some kind of activation to undergo their intended purpose, whether it is to trigger an alarm or release a clean suppression agent. Three main types of active fire protection systems: fire suppression, sprinklers, and smoke detectors. Another is passive fire protection systems are those systems put in place within the structure of the building and that require no human interaction to do what they are intended to.
Fall hazards. Fall hazards are present regardless of the height. Falling from any height is dangerous and could have deadly consequences. The higher the area, the more it is prone to the risk of falling. However, falling from lower heights causes serious injuries as well. All things considered, the human body has no ideal opportunity to react and attempt to break the fall via arriving on your feet. Fall risks and hazards. So, fall hazard can include but are not limited to the following: work around wall and or floor openings, work on elevated equipment, work from ladders or scaffolding, working on roofs or near edges, and working above dangerous equipment.
Fall hazard control. Fall hazards identified shall be controlled in one of two ways: eliminating the hazard or use of fall protection controls. Methods in eliminating the hazard: guardrail system, covers, relocating equipment or controls to remove the fall hazard. Next, the use of fall protection controls. Types of fall protection: fall arrest, positioning and restraint, suspension, and retrieval. Choose the fall protection system that provides the best protection against the fall or an injury. Fall protection systems must be designed to provide protection but to allow the users to perform required work with minimal limitations.
Health hazards. Being in a power plant, there are many exposure to occupational related dusts, mists, vapors, gases, smoke, and fumes. Chemicals can enter the body by several routes. The most important and most common route of entry is by inhalation through the lungs. This is very important, especially since the company uses coal to provide electricity. There would be dust whenever a lump of coal is lighted through the air. Also, it will flow anywhere that the workers might inhale. Health risks and hazards would be our health, of course, the immune system, and the respiratory system.
Respiratory protection. The patient is protected from dangerous inhalation of poisonous environment hazards by using a respiratory mask. Toxic atmospheric hazards include dust, fogs, fumes, mists, gases, smokes, sprays, fibers, or vapors. A full or half-face atmosphere provide or air purifying respirator is needed for protection against organic dust, gases, and vapors. The NIOSH clearance sticker can be applied to all filters, tubes, and canister used in the workplace. Labels should not be removed and should be readable.
Confined space hazard. Working in confined spaces creates a risk of death or serious injury. This could be from exposure to hazardous substances or dangerous conditions such as lack of oxygen or a buildup of water. Confined space refers to any place, including any vessel, tank, container, pit bond, chamber, cellar, or any other similar space which will lead to a likelihood of an accident, harm, or injury. The risks and hazards of confined spaces would be toxic atmosphere, oxygen deficiency, oxygen rich enrichment, flammable or explosive atmospheres, flowing liquid or free flowing solids, and excessive heat.
The procedure for confined space hazard is that all confined spaces shall be considered permit required confined spaces until proven otherwise. which require a site manager, a permit required confined space or non permit required confined space, a confined space inventory with the materials, PPEs, atmospheric reading, names, date, and time. Job positions and duties in FTC Misamis Power Corporation with regards to confined space. We have the facility or site manager. The facility or site manager must assess the work environment and locate each enclosed space. Each confined space must be categorized as each a permit required confined space or a confined space that does not require a permit. A confined space inventory type must be used to document any relevant details about unsafe atmospheres, related risks, and appropriate personal protective equipment. The facility manager is responsible for any confined space entries that exist on the job site. They ensure that the confined space procedure is taught to both employees and contractors. An approved permit program officials is capable to carry out their responsibilities as outlined in the confined space entry protocol and ensures that a list of all approved employees is kept on the file is maintained. They obtain signature clearance for all exceptions from this procedures criteria, ensures that the company employees are well trained in order to comply with the protocol, conduct an annual assessment to determine if this protocol is being followed and whether any changes are needed, to capture, integrate, and exchange lessons learned from internal and external sources that affect the confined space entry process. Entry supervisor is responsible for the following actions: determine whether or not suitable entrance requirements exist at a restricted space where entry is planned, complete and review the CSE permit or checklist for all officials participating in the confined space entry, authorize entry and oversee entry operations, is aware of the risk involved with the confined space entry, and prior to entering checks the confined space inventory and classification worksheet to assess space classification, also to ensure that the permit required confined space reclassification certification is completed, as well as the confined space entry permit if necessary. Before endorsing the permit and allowing admission to proceed, ensures that all checks required by the permit have been completed and that all protocol regulations and facilities required by the permit are in order. The issuance and closing of restricted space entry permits is the responsibility of the entry supervisor. Next, we have the attendant. The attendant must be aware of the dangers of enclosed spaces and consider the behavioral effects of possible exposures. The attendant is prohibited from doing all other tasks that would conflict with their primary responsibility of monitoring and protecting the welfare of approved entrants. In this case of an emergency, the attendant must be fitted with an air whistle, telephone, or another form of contact to summon assistance. Until relieved by another attendant, they remain outside the permit required restricted area during entry operations. The attendant's location should be next to the space entrance, allowing the attendant to track and interact with the entrance operating inside the space as quickly as possible. They continue to communicate with entrants as needed to check their position and warn them if the room needs to be evacuated. They also prevent illegal access to the restricted area. If an unwanted party occupies the enclosed room, the attendant must alert the entry supervisor and advise them to leave immediately. In the case of an emergency, perform an entry rescue or summons rescue and other assistance. The attendant must maintain a process or way of notifying approved entrants that they must evacuate. Using a sign in and sign out document, maintain a correct record of approved entrants entering and leaving the permit required enclosed area. The attendant also orders permit needed to be evacuated when dangerous situation occurs. Confinement is essential. When an approved entrant exhibits symptoms of a hazard exposure, physiology effects. If an emergency occurs in the enclosed space, when the attendant is unable to perform necessary tasks successfully and efficiently. Next is to ensure that the perimeter of the permit required confined space is secure and free from unauthorized individuals. And lastly, ensures that admission procedures are carried out in accordance with the entry permit and that appropriate entry requirements are met.
Authorized entrance reads and understands the entrance permit, establishes and preserves contact with the attendant, notifying them anytime they A. Recognize the signs or symptoms of being exposed to a potentially dangerous condition, and B. Identify the disorder that is prohibited. Number 3. Exit from the permit is necessary when an order to evacuate is issued. Get out of the confined area as soon as possible. Notice any warning, indication, or symptom of being exposed to a dangerous situation. And lastly, a potentially dangerous situation discovered, the evacuation warning goes off. Next position would be authorized atmospheric tester. It verifies that the device being used is appropriate for the environment being tested, that it is correctly configured and operated according to the manufacturer's procedures, and that it is still under its certification time. 2. They have ample information to properly interpret the findings. And 3. They are mindful of the potential pollutants as well as the procedure's testing conditions.
Personnel should be aware of the potential dangers they can encounter upon admission, including specifics about the mode, signs, or effects and risks of chemical exposures. They should be familiar with the use of necessary rescue personnel safety devices and maintain consistent and ongoing communications with the external staffs. They should also comply with the entry permits terms and other administrative conditions. As contained space rescue training should be practiced and recorded on the annual basis. They should have valid first aid and CPR certifications and to ensure that treatment centers handling rescued entrants who have been exposed to a chemical agent are given protective data sheet. That concludes our presentation. Thank you. Shitan signing out.